Thank you for joining us on the Roundtable. Hopefully, you had a great time to discourse the topics that we had talked about a couple of weeks ago. And this week, we're going to be revisiting a topic that we had already had a roundtable on, and that was in the book of Daniel, right? So, just to refresh your memory, this is Daniel chapter 13, verses 1 through 9. Daniel chapter 15 through 17. Daniel 19 through 30. And Daniel 33 through 62. Now, at that time, we know that King Alexander conquered Asia Minor, conquered Assyria, conquered Egypt, conquered Mesopotamia, conquered Media, conquered Persia, conquered Afghanistan. He died under mysterious circumstances, his death, before conquering any more. And then the four generals of King Alexander was Cassander, Ptolemy, Antigonus, Seleucus, and these generals now make up these various section world power as we went and dive into history as to what broke up into the Roman Empire, as well as from the Roman Empire, the United Kingdom, from the Roman Empire, United Kingdom, United States. Okay, so keep that thought in mind. And so we wanted to know, because of the ensuing war of the king of the north and the king of the south in Daniel's day, who represents, that's the question, the king of the north and the king of the south in our present day. And we also want to know look at the map. We're going to look at one map. We're going to look at the map of the Persian Empire. And I want you to compare the Persian Empire map and compare that with the Ottoman Empire. Okay, the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so I want you to compare the two maps, Ottoman Empire and the Persian Empire. And tell us who is the king of the north and the king of the south as represented today. So we're going to be looking at a little bit of global history, part 2 this time. And if you have, I'm not sure how many people got into this discourse the last time that we were looking at the global influence of Satan's agents on earth through his fellow fallen angels. And that was during the time where a third of the angels fell upon the earth. Did you discern what period in time that was? Because we had discerned through art and history that every culture had a picture, either a depiction or a cultural depiction of what demons looked like and appeared like in their culture. But aside from that, aside from when the third of the angel fell upon the earth, there is no depiction of it. Aside from mythology, where the angels had sexual relations with that of mankind, and we saw a period where they grew up into 6, maybe 10 feet, maybe 20 feet in the air. They became very, very huge and very, very powerful, very, very quick. And it was assumed that during the Great Flood, they were done away with. But one or two, Og of Bashan, survived until he was defeated by Moses. And also, even though Og Bashan was defeated by Moses, his offspring, well, maybe not, because no one else was going to be like Og of Bashan when he was destroyed by Moses. He wasn't able to, reproduce. But there are other people who didn't get as big, but carried those genes in the family line, where they grew up maybe 10, 15 feet tall, and then, eventually they came down to normal height around the region. So it's important, aside for Greek mythology, we don't hear anything except for Asian Minor, of a time where in Japan, Asian Minor, and where there's such a depiction of demons that touch upon the earth all at the same time. So we wanted to discern when that was. And it was in the book of Revelation where a third of the angels had fell upon the earth. And we wanted to discern through, perhaps through art, science, and also people's depiction of divinity or divination, where that kind of came in from. Now we know that the Chaldeans practiced divinity. We know that up in King Saul's day, King Saul came upon someone, a spiritual medium, so interacting with individuals who may have been fallen members, fallen angels. So we need, actually, it might have happened around the 3rd century or the 2nd century, but this is several years after the flood. So we know that the Great Flood destroyed most of the creations of the angels having relations with humans. But it didn't do away with those fallen angels having influence in a big way towards mankind, which is why we saw the war, the Great Persian War, happening in Daniel's time. So we just want to know, in that time frame, have anyone discerned definitively, even if it's close, where that time frame came in, where the angels were officially cast out from heavens. And this is kind of along with our teachings too, because we can tell definitively through world culture and history, where we saw things was X and now we see things Y. And what time frame, what time stream it happened. And then we can put in Daniel's uh, uh, great war where he sat there with the king of Persia while the angel of Michael was with Daniel. So this was that great spiritual war that was happening at that time. So we have a pinpoint where the war started, the great spiritual war started in Daniel's time, where the archangel Michael was fighting this great spiritual warfare in the heavens. And then there was another battle that was happening upon the earth where Daniel was. So things were happening simultaneously together. We just want to know pinpoint wise from that time of war that was happening during Daniel's time, how long did it take from the third of the angels falling upon the earth? So, has anyone come up with an answer for that? So, keep that in mind as we have this discourse. And then the next discourse is this. We brought up in the scripture Romans chapter 16, verse 7. Let's turn there. Romans chapter 16, verse 7. So these we're going through this because this is part of your understanding of the war that's happening right now. As part of your growth as you communicate with people and scholars, and maturity. And also it's going to test your research skills, because research skills is not just about reading a book about one century, but it's about how we gather information anthropology wise, culturally, from different people, different times, and different places, as we come to a conclusion, to our final conclusion that this happened at this set period of time. And we can prove it by X, Y, and Z. So that is most helpful in enriching ourselves spiritually and also others, so that they know that nothing is for chance, you know. So Romans chapter 16, as was brought up in our talk this afternoon, reads, "Greet Andronicus and Junius, my relatives and my fellow captives, who are men of note among the apostles and who have been in union with Christ longer than I have." Now, so the scholars discovered that Junius was in fact a woman. Junia, Junia, a woman. But look at how Paul describes it. They are relatives of his, not because they were fellow captives of him, but they were actually relatives of Paul. Can we prove that? Can we prove that there was actually a Junia and not a Julinas, Julinas, that was a relative of the Apostle Paul? And that's very important, because this needs to be updated in text when we get the chance to do that, to digitally update information. A future project in the future endeavor of the making, and also to restructure the text so that things should be in chronological order. If I would have the text, I would rearrange the text based on historical, where stuff happened in time rather than where they are right now, so that I wouldn't see a breakup in stream, and say, well, why isn't this text not where it should be, where it's happening, rather than a couple of centuries off. So, but this would be one of those scriptures that needs to be updated digitally, to represent, because we just read in the scriptures in Romans that everyone who heed the calling is called apostles, and glorify that of Christ, and that who sent Christ. And so irregardless, it doesn't matter what gender it is, the person is, but the fact of the matter is it needs to be represented, because he's calling Andronicus and these other individuals as personal family relatives. So this should be easy to find. So if we can go in and look under Paul's family relations, we should find Andronicus, and we should find whether it is Julianus or Junia. Okay? We should also find under Roman records, underneath the Apostle Paul, who was Paul's fellow captive at that time. His fellow inmates at that time. He said captives as in fellow inmates at that time. So let's go. So we have a lot of spiritual projects, work to get done. We're reviewing back Daniel. We're reviewing the Ottoman Empire map, and we're looking at the Persian map, and then we're going to have this discussion on who is now the king of the north and the king of the south, and what relevance it has in our times, right? So just a refresher. Some of this stuff is just refresher, because we already went through Daniel. We went through all the lands, King Alexander, and how the 4 generals came down, and also the infighting that happens between the generals, that kind of just played itself out in Ezekiel and other textual knowledge. But now we want to see who is the new modern day king of the north and new king of the south, and how is it playing out now in our history and time. Just looking at those 2 maps, the Ottoman Empire as well as the Persian map, the new map of Persia. So that's that. So we're going to end it right here.